So as you can see, we have three different parts. The first part, we're going to redesign our schema so that we can add our user into our blog applications and just manage all the session, all the token, all the authentication and authorization part. So we need to change our schema and modify some fields of it. So this should be our first step. And the second step, we have to design our UI. And the third step is interacting with UI and the backend logic, okay, using the Next-Auth API route. So we're going to do this very awesomely. So first we need to install our packages. And so first we need to install this thing. So let's go and set up it using the Next-Auth. Okay, and let's go. First we need to install npm install Next-Auth. Okay, npm install Next-Auth. So this is the package that will help us to authenticate in your Next.js application. It is really versatile, very useful, very powerful, and you can use GitHub authentication, Google authentication very easily. So today we're gonna learn only the credential based authentication that is really famous and very popular. It is really powerful. So when you use this package, you will understand the power of it. Now we need to install one more package, which is bcrypt. So npm I bcrypt. So we're gonna use this thing, npm I bcrypt. We need to use this library to encrypt our password, to hash our password, so that we don't put the direct password to the database that the user have given. We need to hash it before just sending to the database for security purpose. This is really vital for you guys. You not only you can use bcrypt, you can use other library, but normally I prefer bcrypt because that is simple and versatile to use. So those two packages are installed. So if we go to the package.json, as you can see, we have the Next-Auth and bcrypt is installed. Okay, now we need to work with our Prisma. Okay, here we need to install and here we need to modify something. So first model should be our user model. So in the user model, we should have an ID, and you can just copy those things. Okay, and save this. And user should have username, and it should be string. And this is a required field. And then we have email, and this should be a string, and this should be unique. Okay, at unique, because each individual user should have his unique email. You cannot have multiple users with the same email. Username also unique, but I'm keeping it only the email. Okay, then save it. Then we have password field, and this is also a string, and this is a required field, obviously. Then we need a role. Okay, so which role you are currently in. So a role should be enum field. So before that, I'm just creating this, created it, updated add. Okay, so now we need to create our role. So it should be enum field, enum role, and you can just add this thing. And first one is admin, then we have editor, then normal user. By default it should be user. Okay, so later in the part 2 of this video, we're going to work with the role management and permissions, authentications, all of this stuff properly, so that you can understand the full package of it. So this role field is really important. In the second part of this video, I'm going to talk about the role management and the permissions feature in the Next.js, which will be really interesting for you guys. And this would be some advanced topic that you can understand. Some admin can do all of the stuff. Editor can only edit the blog. He's just editor, and normal user can just only view thing or create any blog, all of this stuff, and admin can manage every single thing. And later we're going to work with the permissions. We're going to give assign permissions to each individual user whom I like. He can manage editing of the blog, he can delete some blog, he can delete some comment. Okay, I'm gonna assign permissions to this user, and he can do some stuffs based on it. So we're gonna implement everything based on it, every single stuff, awesome, beautiful stuff there. So now we need to work with our role. Here we need to have a role, and role should be this role. Okay, that we just assigned, and it should have a default value. The default value should be user. Okay, so the role and the default value is given as user. So this user. Later I'm gonna use one more field, permissions. So I'm just using at this moment permissions, and this should be a string of array. So permissions is like this field. Suppose you have permissions, and in the permissions I'm gonna permit it from the admin panel. I'm gonna assign a role or permissions to this particular user, like he can edit the blog and he can delete the blog. So this type of permissions I'm gonna put into this user. I'm gonna assign it from the admin panel to this user. So we're gonna do this in the second part of this video. This part is only for authentication and just route protections. So these are the two things that I'm going to work on this particular project. But in the second part, you have to watch this video properly, because in the second part, I'm going to really focus and deep dive on the permissions feature. So that's why each individual user should have a permissions list of a string, so that I can manage the permissions based on the user's permission list. If the user has this kind of permission, then I can let him do some work. Okay, we can give him some access to the controller, to the function of the route. Comment section, by default I had an author, but now it shouldn't be like that. It should be different thing. Okay, so first one is ID. Author ID is normal string, and this should be this. Copy this and paste this out, and this should be an object ID, because we need to keep track which author of this comment is. And we can do this using user. If I just delete everything, we need to make a relation with the user. Okay, and how you can make the relation? You can copy this stuff, okay, and make relation with author ID. This author ID is nothing but this author ID, and this author is actually connecting with the user, okay, who is actually just commenting on it. Okay, this author name, and you can just give it author. You can also keep it nullable. You can assign particular author ID who is actually commenting on it. Actually, he is the author of that comment. Okay, and you can also connect it with the author ID and user connection, because a particular user will comment. Okay, so you need to keep track which user is actually commenting. Okay, and I'm just referencing it, and this ID is referencing this user's ID. Okay, and this author ID is actually the tracker. Okay, so this is a very important thing that I already talked about in the previous parts in the Next.js 14 series. So you have to watch this properly in order to learn everything. And you can copy those two things, because we also need this stuff here. Just delete this author. We need to keep track which author is actually creating the blog. So this is super important, and this should be this user. And we need to keep track who is the author of this blog and the relations with it. Okay, and relation should be with the user. Beautiful. And it has the collections of comments, how many comments we have in each individual blocks, and the role manage. As you can see, by default they have added a comment, how many comments this particular user have created, how many blogs this guy have, and the permission, all of this stuff. They are by default, they created it. If you don't need, you can remove this stuff. It's completely up to you. Now our Prisma design is complete. We can just clear it out, and we can generate it. npx prisma generate, npx prisma generate, and it will take some time for the first time. Yep, it is perfect. And then you need to migrate it. npx prisma db push, npx prisma db push. Okay, so now it will push all the updated migrations of the property into the database. Okay, so just remove this stuff, and let's check our MongoDB compass. So as you can see, it's connected, and we have a new model. Before that, it was only block and comment that we have worked on, but now we have a new model, which is user. So it's working just fine. Now, as you can see, there is some problem, because we have added a new author ID, which is not there yet. So now the problem is we need to create our user, and then just collect this user from our MongoDB database and add it to the author, so that we can see all the latest blocks. So before that, now we're going to work with the registration feature and make our UI. So this is the part 2, and here we just add our UI, so that you can see how beautifully it works. As you can see, they have given a documentations. If we go to the route handlers in the Next.js docs, in the app you need to create an API, and the route.js, there you handle all your backend API logics, all of this stuff. But before that, we are just checking if it's working or not. This is not normal error, you don't need to worry about it. Now we need to create our backend. So here in the backend, here we're going to create a new folder called API. Okay, and in the API we're gonna create a new folder called, and you need to give square bracket and triple dot and Next-Auth. Okay, this is a folder. Previously it was just a file, but now it's a folder. So API, and here you need to create a new file called route.js. Here we handle all the sign-in feature. Mainly sign-in is the most complicated feature in this particular tutorial here, but the registration is very simple. Here in the root app directory, I'm going to create a new folder called auth. Okay, and here you need to create a new folder for register. Okay, and in the register we're going to create page.jsx. Okay, beautiful. Here we're going to build all our just UI based on this auth register. Okay, so we have the UI. Yeah, we don't need to worry about it, and I'm just making this register page. Beautiful. You can remove this and you can just paste this stuff. Now as you can see, our register page is set up properly. It has email and HTML for email, and ID email, type email, placeholder, required field, and is unique name email. And for the password, it is also required field and a button for sign up. Beautiful. And username, email, and password. So these are the three things that we need to check if it is working or not. So here we need to go auth/register page. As you can see, it's working. Email, name, and password. Now we need to collect this information and pass this data to the backend so that we can process all of this backend logic for the registration. So now it should be the part 2 is starting. Our UI is already done. So we need to collect all this data now. And for that, we need some information. And as this contains a form, you need to make sure it is use client. Okay, because form is a client component and we have the user interaction with it. That's why use client is so important. You cannot make this server side component. And now we need some data. So const user info set user info is equals to use state, and just make this uppercase and just user info and set user info. And here you can pass some raw data. This is just a default data, so we have the username and keep it empty by default, and then email, and then we need password field. Beautiful. So these are the fields that we need. Then we need one more property which is pending, and set pending is equals to use state, and by default it should be false. It is really important when you're just registering, and it should have some interaction with the backend. It will check if the user is already there. If the user is not there, you can register using the server actions. So this pending state is really important when you are just do asynchronous task and asking for the backend to check if the user is there. You need to wait for some time. So that's why the pending state is super important. Here you can use React hook forms, but I'm gonna make a separate video based on the React hook forms and the schema validation, where you understand all of the advanced stuff there. But now just purely focus on how you can build registration and login feature in the Next.js using the Next-Auth. And then we need one more feature, which is error handling. Error and set error, so that if you have some error, you can just log it out, or you can see this onto the UI. And by default there is no error. Okay, keep it empty. So this is the stage that we need. And after that we need a on change feature. Without that we cannot collect this information from this UI, so we need to collect this information. So how can we do this stuff? And here we're going to use on change, and we're going to make handle change. Okay, handle change, and we need to have a value, and value should be user info dot email, because this is for the username. Sorry, this is for the username, so it should be user username. So we need to just copy all of this stuff and paste this for every places, for password as well. Okay, beautiful. So this should be, the value should be password, and here this value should be email. This is email field, and on change function. Now I need to create the function on change to collect data from form. Okay, so const handle change. So let me show you the function name. Yes, it's handle change, and it will take an parameter e that has all the stuffs like e.target dot value. From there you can get this value. Okay, so now this is the most important and amazing stuff. Before that we used to do like this thing. So let me copy this stuff, like const username is equals to a set username, and here we need to create user state, and by default it is like that. Okay, set username, and we used to do this like this: set username is equals to e dot target dot value. So whatever value we collect from this form, we need to assign it and set it to the set username so that we can get the username. Okay, we can set this information into the username variable using this set username, and we can get this information from this form like this. And for password, set password, it should be e.target.value like this. But for if you have like 20 fields like this, you have to do this 20 times. But now we don't need this kinds of stuff. This is just old school. So what you can do, very simple stuff. Here you just need to write set user info. In the user info you just get every single data. By default it is username, email and password, but let me show you what I do. Here first it will just user info, just the current information in the user info object. Okay, just keep it as it is. With it you need some more data, like dynamic data. You can get e.target.name. okay, and you can get this information using the e.target.value. So e.target.value, from using this thing we can collect the data whatever the user have typed here. Like I type something here, okay, and you just collect it using the e.target.value using the name property e.target.name. So it should be dynamic. So for username it should be e.target.username. For password it should be e.target. whatever the name we have, and this name field is super important. If you don't add this thing, this name it should be dynamic for each individual. Email should have only its unique name email. Okay, and the password, it should be named password. And for username there should be a property called name called username, and based on those names for each individual, if you have 20 of this just text box, you can collect all of their names and dynamically using the e.target.name in the square bracket and just assign all the value that we get from there, e.target.value. So for now username will collect the data using the e.target.value and assign it to the e.target.name, and for email, password, for other 20 or 30 fields it will do the same thing. Just one line of code, you are just getting everything. So you don't need to do this every single time and make different kind of state for it. You don't need that. You just make only one user info object and just give a default value, username, password or email, whatever, and just first spread this out. Okay, and set the user info and spread this out whatever you have in the before in the default, and whatever you get from the form e.target.name, and inside that you get u.target.value. So how beautiful this is. And now we need to have a ref. If you want to just do something with the form, we need something called reference, and const ref is equals to use ref, and this is a hook in React that has a lot of features, and you can do a lot of stuff like ref dot target dot reset. If you want to reset the form after processing it, after registering, you can do this stuff. Okay, so it is really important. Then also we need router, all of this stuff. So let me add this const router is equals to use router. Okay, it should be use router. It should be coming from the next navigation. This is the latest way to do this stuff. We are doing all of the stuff in Next.js authentication is the Next-Auth using the latest version. So Next.js 14. So we need to just make sure to do this stuff. And this is for just redirection. It will help you to redirect to login page after registrations. You're gonna go to login page. So when everything is done, API work is done, backend logic is done, then you can just route it to the different pages. And this is to handle the form something. And this is for the get user info data and set it to the form. Okay, so beautiful. And this should handle all our on change, on submit. So in the form we also need on submit. Okay, so handle submit. Okay, so we're gonna copy this stuff and we're gonna handle submit for registration logic. Here we're gonna write all the logic and throw all of our information into the backend, and backend will handle everything. So const here this thing, and here it also takes event, and we need e.default, and here we're gonna console.log. okay, if you want to log something, want to see some data that what we have collected in the UI. So let's check it out. Here we're gonna inspect it, console, and here we're gonna put some data, username and some password. If you just click on this sign up, this handle submit will just trigger, as you can see, and we can collect all this information that we have here. As you can see, in the object we have username, which is I have given, email, password, username, all of this stuff. So it is working fine. When you click on this, it's there. So if I change it to something like friends, if we just friends, and if I just see this stuff, as you can see, it's working nice. Our UI stuff is almost completed. Now the only we need is the backend logic, and here we need to just put all of our backend logic. Purely we should work on our backend so that we can push all this information into the backend and do our authentication, login, register, all of the thing logics in the backend. So here we need to create one more folder, which is auth. Okay, and in the auth we just need to just drag this next-auth and move this thing. So in the API we have a auth folder, and here in the next-auth we have the route. And also in the auth folder we need to create one more folder inside the auth folder, which is called register. Okay, so now as you can see, for this route.js is inside next-auth route.js. Here we're going to do all the functionality called like JWT token and asynchronous operation, login system. For registration we don't need that, but all we need is under API folder we have a auth folder, and in the auth folder we have a register. Okay, and here we need to build route.js, and this is the latest way how to do authentication in Next.js with the Next-Auth system. Okay, this is the API route handler, API/auth, and here this is the thing that is needed. Here we need to make our backend function for our registration. So export default and function post. Okay, so this is a post function, and it takes parameters request, response, all of this stuff. And here we need to use try catch block. Always for asynchronous operation to all of the stuff in the database, all the things should be inside try and catch block. It is the best practices. So here you're gonna get all of our user data like username, like email, like password from, and we're gonna get it from request.json. Okay, so this parameter, we're gonna get all the data from our client side, and we need to make this function async. Okay, so that we are working with async with this is the thing that takes some time, so this should be asynchronous functions. As you know, this is a really basic thing. So we have the username, email, and password, and first we're gonna console.log this out. Okay, and we're gonna log this here, username, email, and password. Okay, and if I have some error, I'm gonna console.log error.message or whatever. First I'm gonna just print the error if we have some error. Okay, so let's check this out from our client to server. So for that we need to go inside our client side. This is our API error. This should be in the, this is actually the backend of our Next.js application, but in the auth register, this is our client side page where we're going to build all the functionality. And here in the backend logic, I'm going to call API. But first we need to check if all the information is provided. If user info dot username is not there, or email or user info dot password is not provided, then we're gonna set some error message. In the error message, we need to write you must provide all the credentials. Okay, all the features. Like here I'm gonna use try catch block again. Okay, and you're gonna write console.log and error. Okay, and in the try catch block here I'm gonna write const response is equals to await, and for that you need to make this submit function async, otherwise it will not work. When you click on this submit button, it should check if you provide all the information that the user have typed, otherwise it will not work. It will set an error, you must provide all the information. And response, and here we need to go into our backend, and using the fetch we're gonna write /auth/register. So we are just using this backend API route that we have just created. As you can see in the API we have register route, and so this is the path we are going inside. In the auth route, in this auth folder, we are going inside this register. So that's why this spread operator next.auth is really important, so that you don't need to write API/auth/register again and again. You just write auth/register auth/login to do whatever you like. So as you can see, this is the directory, this is the auth folder, and then we have the register. So this is the place where we are going. So we need to do this stuff, and here we need to write method is equals to post, because this is a post request. And headers, you can write headers content type dash content type, and this should be application /JSON. Okay, you can use Axios here. In the body parameters you need to pass the data which is user info, but before that you need to use json.stringify. So before that you need to use stringify, so that we can make this object into a string and passing into our API. So this is, we are just passing all this information into this backend API route using the fetch request. Okay, so this is the most important stuff, and now we need to check this out if it is working or not. Okay, and let me show you all of the stuff. So here I need to just remove this thing. It shouldn't be export default. Okay, so this should be like that, and we are getting all this information from the request.json from the client, and we are just passing it into our backend. Okay, so we just need to check this out. So if I just write sign up, if I just click on this, and here you see all the variables, all the informations is there. Okay, so now it is working just fine. So first we need to check if the user is exist. Okay, we need to check this. So for that we need to import Prisma, and this is really important. So const Prisma is equals to new Prisma client. Okay, so now here I'm gonna need to call prisma.user unique. You can find first or find unique, whatever you like. So I'm just using find first, where, and I'm gonna use or operator, if I use OR operator, I can just select different kind of parameter, different kind of property to do the work. First, I'm gonna check username is the username that we got from our client side. Okay, so this is the data that user have passed. If this user is already exist or not, we are just checking with this particular username. And for email also, if there is this particular email exist or not for this particular user, we need to check if there is any user with this particular email that the user have passed, then he's already existed. We don't need to create it again. We're just checking if it exists or not. You can just use only one operator here. If I just remove everything, where email is equals to email, if it is there, because email is our unique field. If I just go to schema, as you can see, our email is actually the unique field. So you can do this stuff later as well, but I need to I'm just using it so that I can show you two operators. So I'm just using it this way because I want to show you the OR operator. You can provide multiple parameter, multiple properties based on your user check, like username should be unique, email should be unique, and that's the thing that is really important, if the user is exist or not. So if I here I'm gonna write check user is exist or not. I'm just checking it. Okay, so now if it is exist, if user is exist, if it is true, we're gonna return next response. So now we are getting all the response from our backend to the client. We need to send some response that the user is exist as a JSON format. And here, like we used to do in the Express server, we need to pass some message that user is already created, user already exists. Okay, and here we need to pass one more parameter called status code, and status code of 500, suppose. So this is the thing that is really important. User already exists. So this is the thing that we're gonna pass if user is exist. Otherwise, we're gonna create a new user. Create new user. Okay, so for that I'm going to use await prisma.user.create, and here we need to create a new user, and we need to pass the data, and it should be username is equals to username, email is equals to email, and the password that user have given, password. But in a modern JavaScript way, you don't need to write this. If your value and key is all the same, object and value is actually the same name, here email and is equals to email, password is equals to password, they're all same, so we don't do that. For username and email we don't need to do that, but for password you need that, because the password should be hashed password. Okay, we need to create a hashed password. So we need to create a hashed password, and for that we need to create a hashed password. Here I'm going to use await bcrypt, and we need to import bcrypt. So before that I have already installed it, you already know. Import bcrypt from bcrypt. I have already installed that, so you need to just bcrypt it, bcrypt.hash. We need to hash this password that the user have given, and we need to provide a salt value, that how strong it should be. Normally 10 is perfect, but if you want more security you can use 12, but normally 10 is okay for most of the cases. So what it does, it actually makes a hashed password for you guys. If you provide 1 2 3 4 or 5 6 7, it will convert it into like this format. Okay, so different kind of junky format that it will just convert your password. So now in the password field in the database, we have username, email, password, all of this stuff, and by default the role should be, and just pass the hashed password in the password field. So if I just show you the user schema, username, email, password, these are really important field, and then the role, and by default it is user. You don't need to worry about it, and also you don't need to worry about the permissions, because these are not that important field. They are just normal field that you can work with it later. At this moment you don't need that. Okay, So if I go to register in our backend, here we have created a new user with this particular authentication feature, and here we have created with the information like username, email, password, whatever the user provide in our client side. And the catch block, you can set error login, error while registering. Okay, you can just see this, and also you can return a next response .json. Here you're gonna pass a message that error occurred while registering. Error occurred while registering. Error occurred while registering. Okay, that's awesome. And you can also pass a status code of normally 500. We use 500 as a status code, so it should work just fine. And response, nice. Okay, we're gonna show this error message to the people. Our backend logic is perfectly done. Now we need to check if the user is created or not in our client side. We need to just use this thing. So if I go to the client side page, register page, and here as you can see, if we need to check if the response is okay. If response dot okay, then we need to do something. The response is okay, we need to check set pending is equals to false. Okay, so in the beginning we need to make sure set pending is equals to true, because now we are just working on registering the user, and we need to have some database operation. We are just checking if the user is there or not, and we just passing all this information using the streamFi method, using the post request to the backend, and we are checking if the user is response is okay, then set pending to false. Now it shouldn't load anything. And also we need to make sure that ref.current.reset, we need to reset the form. Okay, and make sure you just check it if there is there, and we need to use a router.push. So after that we need to go to auth/login page. Okay, auth/login page, but at this moment we don't have our login page, but I'm just creating it, auth/login, and here I'm gonna create a page so that you can just redirect. So here I'm gonna create a login page. It should be a login page, and you should see this login page. Okay, so in there after login, if it is successful, it just redirects us to auth/login page. As you can see here, will redirect, and you can also console.log here that user registration done. Perfect. Else if you have some problem, here you will just write const data, or this should be error data is equals to await response.json, and we're gonna set error, and that some error happened, and this should be inside there, and it should be error data dot message. Whatever the error message is, we want to show this thing, and this error data dot message, inside this property you should have this error data, and we're going to show it inside our error message. Okay, and we can write console.log again that something went wrong, all this stuff. This is the basic. And set pending is equals to false again. If you have some error, make sure you set pending to false. This is absolutely necessary. And one more stuff, let me show you one more thing where the error message should be. The error message should be here. If you have some error, then you should have this span text red 200 or 400, mx2, px2, all this stuff, and my2, py2. So if you have some error, it will show us inside this span tag. So let me show you all this stuff what I have done. So after the response is okay, you just make sure that you set pending to false, and if you want to just reset the form, you do this, and after that you should go inside the login page and just say user registration is done. So let's check our application. If I just add one more user here, hopefully it works. And make sure you add all this route properly. This routing, most of the cases you will just do most of the cases you will forget how to do the proper way to write this API routing. This is basically most of the people who are having problem with this, but otherwise this is just a childish stuff. This is very simple. I know this is the very simple stuff, the registration part. So if I just put all this data, click on sign up, as you can see, we see the registration page and it redirects to login. Yes, beautiful. That is really awesome. It redirects us to the login page. If the response is okay, if everything is done, registration is done, and you also see the user registration done on the console.log. So if I see the log, as you can see, it's registration done. Now I need to check our database, and here we just refresh it. As you can see, one new user is added. Name, email, password is also hashed. Its role is user, created and updated at object ID. Everything is there. So now we need to check it register again. And here we need to add the same email. So here I need to add the same email again, so that I want to check if it registers or not. As you can see, there is some error. You can customize this error message whatever you like, but as you can see, there is internal server errors. If I just go into the backend, if I already checked this out, if the user is exist, it says email is already exist, or user or email is already taken. You can check this message. Okay, because the user is already there, so you can't do this stuff. And here we can just write console.log this out, user already exists. In the backend console.log, I have used this thing. Let's sign up and let me check. As you can see, user already exists in the backend console.log. As you can see, you can see this stuff that user is already existed, so that you can check if it is working or not. Okay, so now if I add a new user like test at gmail.com and give it a new password and just register, as you can see, it's registering. It is registration done, and in the console registration done, and in the backend, as you can see, new user is added. And by default, I'm gonna change my name. By default, I'm going to change my role into an admin. If I want to check the admin feature later, I must do this. So I'm just updating myself here from the backend. In the next part of the video, where I'm going to work with the role management and the permission system. So that's all for today, guys. As you can see, the authentication is really awesome, and the registration feature is really easy. Now the most hardest part is the login feature. The login feature is really important to understand. In the Next-Auth, it's completely new way how we handle everything. So let's build the login feature and let's work with the login authentication system. As you have seen, we have already worked with the register functionality. Now it's time to work with our login feature, our tokenization, session management, all of this stuff. So before that, I want to make my UI. We can see this is our application is loading, and by the way, we're using the Next.js Next-Auth version 5. Okay, so if we just go inside this URL, we just go to credential providers auth. So we are using the credential providers for the authentication. You have different kind of providers like GitHub provider, Google provider. You can use all of the provider here very easily and very simply. So as you can see, we have different kind of way we can manage our authentication, security, role management, all out of this stuff. If you work with the refresh token as well, you have the easily you can customize all of this stuff. And you have the callbacks that we're going to use, right, like session and JWT to handle or manage our session and JWT. All of this stuff you can easily handle this in your applications. So today we're going to briefly just check all of this out, and today we're going to work with the session based authentication. So today we're going to work with the credential provider only, and you have to manage all of the things like session, token, and we're going to use the server side session, client side session, all of this thing to manage our authentication and route management and route protection, all of this stuff. Just you need to understand the credential provider, how it works, and this is the thing that we're gonna work with. In the auth folder and in the login page, as you have seen, I have just taken all of this UI from our register page, because it's almost all the same, just the user field is not there. So the login page, you just need a form that takes only email from the user, and it have a value user info.email, and on change it just get the data from the form, okay, from the form field. And same for password, we only need only 2 information. If there is any error, I was going to show it into this page. And we just set the button to disable when the pending status equals to true, and when it is pending it says that login in the button name or the button level, but when you are not login, otherwise it is login. And we have a link to go to the auth/register page. As you can see, auth/register page, if you are not logged in, you need to, or you are not authenticated, you need to register to this application. You have a simple link to it. So we're gonna test this out. So we need to go to auth/login. As you can see, this is the 2 information that we need, okay. And after that, I just copied all of the stuff that the register page has, like is handle submit, on change to get all this data, and state, use ref, use router, all of this stuff, and pending state, error state as well. As you can see, I just copy pasted everything in. You just need email and password, you don't need username for login, okay. And this is the way you just get the data e.target.name and e.target.value from the form. You just get all this information and set the value inside the user info. And when you click on this sign in button or login button, it will just do all the functionality. First, it's gonna check that you must provide all the credential. If you don't provide anything, then in the type catch block, I just set pending to true, and all of the beautiful stuff. And before that, we need to check one more thing, which is that we need to create a provider that wraps everything. So in the root app directory, so let me show you in the root, this is our home page. This should be our home page. You're going to protect everything. So after you log in, you should go to the redirect to the home page. So that is really important. And here in the app directory, we need to create providers.jsx. Okay, so it should be client component, use client component, and here export const, and it should be providers is equals to, and it will take a children, okay. Then we're gonna wrap everything. You're gonna return a session provider, so we need to import this thing as well. So import session provider from next.auth/react. So we need to import session provider, okay. So I will just show you why it's so important, and we need to pass this children prop inside this session provider. So we are just wrapping everything of our application, every pages, every components, navbar, footer, all of those things that we need to export this thing provider, and we need to pass a children, and all the children, we're gonna show you this, everything would be just wrapped inside this session provider. So you need to save it, and we need to use it inside this logout page. This is our root page, that all the thing wrapped, like navbar, footer, children, everything. And here we need to use this thing like providers. This is the providers that we built, and here we just need to wrap everything with it, okay. Now this provider is coming from /providers, this from this page, and we need to wrap everything. Now we can access all the sessions, all of the beautiful stuff, so that we can manage our authentication, route protection, everything based on it. We can do everything, and we just need to go inside our login page and build our main logics here. It should be our client side logic, like we're gonna get a response, you're gonna await sign in, and this sign in is coming from this Next-Auth React, and it takes credentials. Because we are using the credentials, if you use Google Auth, you should use Google Auth or GitHub Auth, all of this stuff. And here you need to pass the data as credentials, like email. You need to pass email that is coming from userinfo.email, and then password that is coming from userinfo.password. Okay, beautiful. And then you can use redirect. I'm just keeping it false at this moment. I don't want to redirect. And we have a callback URL. This is actually the base URL of your application. When you just successfully logged into your application, you should redirect to the callback URL. That is actually the base or root URL of your applications. So it should come from process.env file. next.auth URL. Now we need to set this next.auth URL, and here I don't want to show you the database URL, that's why I'm just writing it here. Next.auth URL is equals to http/localhost 3000. So next.auth URL, this is actually your callback URL. Okay, so just save this page and make sure you just refresh everything after you change anything. You just rerun your server. This is really important. So our provider setup is done, our environment setup is done, our provider setup is done. Now if we go to the login page.jsx, and here we have used the credentials and get the user data like user info.email, password, and we just, when it is successful, we just set the callback URL to the next.auth URL. Okay, this is actually the root path of your applications. Now we're gonna check if the response, okay, if the response is not okay, there is some problem, then you can set some error like invalid credentials or problem during login. And if I want to set problem signing in, okay, problem signing in, and if there is some error in the response.error, if there is some error there, they're gonna set error, and we're gonna write invalid credentials. Your credentials is not right, and we're gonna make sure that set pending is equals to false, and we just return. And after that, you just need to write pending, set pending status to false after it is successful, and router.replace, we need to import router, const router is equals to use router, and make sure it should be coming from the Next navigation free, because we are using the latest version of Next.js. It's super important. And router.replace the home directory. So we are going into the home directory of our applications if everything is successful, and we already have the callback URL as well. So all those things is done, and now we need to pass those things. This is actually our client-side component. This is actually our client-side thing. We just need to pass inside this sign-in function. You have used the credentials system, and here we need to pass the email and password, and this is the information that will catch inside our applications backend part of the Next.js auth. So if I go to the API, as you can see, we have the dynamic next.auth and this route, and inside this route we have this route.js. In the next.auth folder we have the route.js. Here we need to catch all this information and process it and do our magical sign-in operation. So if I see the documentations, you can use all of this stuff, the providers, you have the credential provider. We're gonna use everything stuff, or every single stuff here, so just keep it aside. First, what we're gonna do, just make it smaller, and we're going to use the full documentation how we can do this. So first we need to have a auth options, that is the configuration of our Next-Auth system. So export const auth option. So at first we need the auth options, and here we need to have all the configurations. It has providers, which providers you are using, your session management, everything. Okay, and finally you need a handler. Const handler is equals to next-auth, and it should come from the Next-Auth. Okay, as you can see, Next-Auth next, and here we need to pass the auth options or the configurations system. So Next-Auth would handle all the authentication system, you just need to pass the configuration. So auth options is like nothing but just a configuration of your applications. And now we need to export this thing. Export handler as get and handler as post. If you want put operation or any other thing, you can use this thing. What it does, this handler function, is you can handle get or post request, everything it can handle. Okay, this thing takes a lot of parameters. It can have callbacks, providers, everything. So first it needs the credential provider. You need to import it for our Next-Auth. So we just need to import the next credential provider, and in the options providers, we can use this thing. You can pass multiple providers, different kind of Google Auth provider, GitHub provider, different kind of thing, but I'm just using the normal credential provider. So credentials provider, and here you need to pass some data like name. It takes a name like credentials, credentials, and then we have a credentials. Okay, and the credentials is actually nothing but what the user have given. You can just copy this whole thing. You can copy the whole stuff, and the username should be lowercase username as a label, and text should be text and placeholder. You don't need placeholder at this moment, and password should be, label should be password, and type should be password, and this should be email. This should be email, sorry, it's not username, it's email, and the type should be email. And this should be exactly like in the page we have. If I go to login page, it should be similar to this email, password. And if I go to the form, as you can see, we have HTML for email. This should be our label, and type is email, name is email, and a type email, and password, name is password, and HTML for password. So exactly this kind of label and name you need inside this backend next.auth route.js file if you want to get the credential from our client to the backend. Okay, so this is actually the main backend part. You can consider it as a backend, and this part is actually the front end. Here from the front end, we are just passing all this data using this sign-in function. You need to pass this email and password, and it will catch all the data here. Okay, in the route.js, in the credentials, we are just getting all those information. So now we can copy the whole stuff here. Okay, async authorize, and it takes the credentials that user have given into the client-side application. You just took the username or the email or password, and you can just use all of this stuff. Okay, you can use all the logics here. If there is any user, you can work with it, or null, and it's very simple stuff. So here we need to work with our backend. So before that, I'm going to use the session strategy to JWT. Okay, we're going to use the JWT session strategy. Then we need the providers. Then we're going to use different kind of callbacks here. So here we're going to write if the credentials.email is not provided, or credentials.password is not provided, that we're gonna return null. Or you can throw an error. You can throw new error in, you can say invalid credential, or the credentials are required. So you can just write this thing, but by default I'm just sending it to return null. You don't do anything. And we need to check if the user is there into the database, then you can only log in, otherwise you won't find this. So const user is actually await, and we need to work with the Prisma. So we need to import const Prisma is equals to new Prisma client. So we need to work with it, and here we need to go inside the Prisma.user.find unique, where email is actually credentials.email. If the email is actually matched in the database with the credential email is actually what user have given, and this email is actually checking if this actually this email is exist on this database, then you make sure that yes, this user now can log in because he has existed in this particular database. It's matched properly with this particular unique email. Then you can just console console.log user found and this particular user. Now we just need to check if the user is not there, then we can return null. If the user is not there into the database, if the user's information is not saved onto the database, then the user cannot log in because he is not authenticated into the database. Then we need to check one more thing, which is if the password is matched, is password valid. So for that we're going to use the bcrypt compare to import just compare, import compare from precrypt. Okay, we need to use this function like compare, and it takes two information. The first one is credentials dot password, what the user have typed, and what the database user dot password. And this user is actually this coming from the database passwords user password. We need to match with this database user's password with the current user's password that the user have given. If it is valid, then you can work with it. Okay, and if it is not valid, then you can throw new error and whatever you would like, but I'm just sending it return null. This password is valid, and then user is not null, and user already exists. After everything check up, after everything is checked up, now we can return the user. Like id is now we can return user.id, and email is equals to user.email. As you can see, we have everything here, and password is actually I think we don't need the password because it's a confidential data, and username is equals to user.username. Then put comma, and then we have the role in the user model. We can also get the role if it is he is admin or manager, editor, normal user, a lot of stuff. Even you can get the permissions if there is any permissions, user.permissions, because permissions you need to check the permissions here. Okay, put a comma here, permissions, user.permissions, or the schema, it says the permission. Okay, it's a little bit of different. I want to change this, it should be permissions. Okay, so just save this, and just npx prisma generate. So if you want to change any name, you should do this stuff using this. So then npx prisma db push the new migration schema into the database. Okay, so when you change some information on the property or add or delete anything, you need to do this. Really important. It is so much important that copy these permissions and just go inside this backend route, and here you can use this thing, use the permissions. Okay, now it is working. If you have other properties like phone number or other stuff, you can do this stuff. There is no problem with it. This is absolutely awesome. So you just need to save it, and in the provider, after provider, you have a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff like pages, and here you can pass sign in is equals to login page, and this should be the login page. And then we have a callbacks, we have JWT session, different kind of session. So before that, I want to add something like debug is equals to true, process.env.node environment. It make sure is actually in development. When you are in development, the debug should be true. Okay, you need other stuff like JWT, and in the JWT you need to pass some secret. And it should also come from process.env.jwt secret. And we need one more secret, which is Next-Auth secret. It's not JWT secret, but this is simple secret. So it takes a JWT secret as well as this secret as a property. It can also have, you can set a new another secret key for the Next-Auth secret for the JWT secret, and this is for the normal configuration secret. So we need to just copy this thing and go inside our env, and in the env I'm gonna paste this thing. JWT secret is equals to any secret you can add. It's completely up to you. Just go inside there and Next-Auth secret, and this for the Next-Auth secret, and go inside the env and paste this stuff, be anything. Okay, this is very confidential, don't show this to your real application, make sure you hide it. And so that's why I'm using here the env variable. So in this auth options, you can see many things can happen, like whatever session you are using, your providers, your pages, your debug method. If you are debugging, make sure you just use the developer method if you want to debug is also true. So normally at this moment we have a user. So if I check the database, MongoDB Compass, and you change anything in the environment variable, you should rerun your application. Is absolutely vital. Okay, and if we go to the next block in the user, as you see, we have two user, my name, which is the admin, and the test. And we have other, we just need to check if we can log in here. We can get this data from the database. So in the inspect, if we just add the password and the email, if we just log in, and as you can see, we just redirected to the home page, and we already got this information from our client side as well. As it is a backend code, whatever you write in the Next-Auth route.js, here all the thing is backend. So as you can see, user found, and this is the user that we collect from our database using the Prisma. So how beautiful it is. You got the ID, username, password as a hashed password, role, permissions, when the user is created, updated, everything. You got everything from our backend. So we got all the data. It's beautiful. So after that, as you can see, all the thing is working really fine. If I just log in with another user now, and just need to just check in the applications, as you can see, in the cookies localhost, we have all the sessions. As you can see, callback URL, CSRF token, different kind of stuff that we have here. So if I log in with another user, like auth/ login with another user like test, this user is test, and we have, if I just log in, invalid credentials. So I think test@gmail.com. so I think I just need to add 5-character password. As you can see, it worked really fine, because there is a user with the test. And if I check the backend, in the terminal, as you can see, the username is test, email, password, role, all of normal user, he's a normal user. So everything is really awesome. It worked really fine. Now we need to work with the logout feature. This is also really important. Okay, so otherwise we can't delete this session. We must delete this thing. If we delete everything, as you can see, it's very highly secured. It worked really fine. So our authentication is mainly done. Now we need to work with our sessions and tokens, which is the most important part of this application. And to handle this, we need to work with our callbacks. I'm gonna work with the callbacks. So if I just go and set the documentations in the callback, what I need to do, just use the callback so that I can handle the JWT, and you can pass this out and pass a comma. So in the callback, we have a session, we have JWT, we have different kind of thing. So at this moment, we don't need the account or profile. If you were using GitHub, Google, all of the thing, you need to do this. And also we need this session callback as well. We need to find this session as well. So that if we go to the callback, and this is the session we need. So you can copy those two things directly. So one is to handle session, that will work with the client side of our, how to protect our route, protect our authentication user, protect our admin, protect our user based on their role. If you want to manage all those things in the session, you can do this. But the session is actually get actual data from the user and set it into a token after the sign-in is done. So before that, in the token, first we need to work with the token, and then we will work with the session. So first, after the login is successful, okay, so after login, you need to work with the JWT. You need to work with the JWT token and get the user data from here. Okay, so we need to console.log. So JWT token info, and here what you have, you can delete everything. We don't need, we just need the token and the user of the database user, that who is actually logged in, this information, JWT user info. Okay, you can name it user info, that would be better. And you can also console.log the token, okay, and return the token. So let's check it out. And if I just log in, if I just auth/login, and if I log in, so if I log in, as you can see, it's logged in successfully. And after that, if I see the backend, as you can see, we already logged the user info that is coming from the database, and this is the user info that is coming from, as you can see, the name, email, all of this stuff. I don't know why the username is not coming. It should have come, it should have been there. Okay, so username, it should be username. So that's the problem. You need to get the username as well. User.email ID, and then username, role, permissions, everything is done. So now you need to just log in again, auth/login. If I just log in here, and now I think it will work just fine. As you can see, we get all the information like email, username, role, permissions. This is the user info. In the token, you have email. So as you can see, in the JWT, we already got the token and the user information, and now we need to set all those information. We need to check if the user is there. So now everything is done. If the user is there, if you have the user, then you just need to return. We just need to return the token, whatever token we got, and ID is equals to user.id, email is equals to user.email, and then we need username is equals to user.username, okay. So ID, email, username, and the role is user.role inside the token. So this token means keep whatever the token you got and add this to information what you got from the user. Like user ID, we got it from the database, okay, and we just collect it from here in its name, username, role, permissions, and permission. We also get it from user.permissions, okay. So all of this stuff we should return. Okay, if you find the user, you need to return all this thing, and then you're gonna return the token as well. After that, you're just getting all this information inside this token, and then you need to pass all this information from the token to the session now. So this is the way, this is the flow. First you get the all the information from the user and set all the information to the token and in the token. And now the token has all the user information of the data, and then you can catch it inside this field in this variable of this session, and here you can manage everything. So here you're gonna return all the session. You can just remove everything, whatever the session we have, keep it aside. Then we have a user field, and here we can also session.user, keep it whatever we have. And then we need the ID of the user that we'll get from the token.id. And you can just console.log the token, and you can see all this information. If I just console.log this out, it will be easy for you to understand. Session, and in the session we have the token, okay. And this is the session token inside the session, so that you can understand. Yes, it's now here. That riyadh@gmail.com, and with some password we just need to register a new user so that we can see all this information. And now we just need to log in, and if we just log in here now, he's logged in, because as you can see, if I just refresh, one more user is there. As you can see in the session token, this is the session token. Now in the token you see email, username, role, permissions, username, role, email, all of this stuff except the password. You have all the field, like, So we just successfully get all the information from the user that we got inside the callback of the JWT. So in the user, this is actually the database, all the information of the database user that is logged in. We collected all the information of the current logged in user and set it to the token, and now we just pass this information inside this session, and now from this token we need to set all the data inside this session. So this is the process. As you can see, session token have all of the information, all the information data that we need. So we successfully passed all this information. Now is just piece of cake. Now we have the email that is coming from token.email, and then we have the username that is coming from the token.username, because all the information is now inside the token. We're just setting all the information into the session. So that's why we say keep whatever the session and keep whatever the session user is, and then add all this stuff. So this is the normal spread operator. I think you all guys already know about it, how it works. Then role, and then permissions is whatever the token dot permissions is. If there is any permission, just you need to check all those things out. Role, permissions, email, ID, username. Now you can just work with your backend authentication. Now we can work with your client-side session manage, backend session manage. Everything is done properly. Now you can authenticate, role manage, and route guard your application very easily. So it's really awesome. Now we have a just client page. So if I go to the page.js, this is our main page, and here if I just want to add h2 tag, I just want to increase it. Here is the home page. This is actually the home page of applications, and current logged in user, logged in user. Current logged in user is the user who is actually in the session. So we need to get this session. So how can you do that? So const session is equals to get server session. So this is how we can get the server side session, and you need to pass the auth options in the configuration that is coming from the Next-Auth route. Okay, so now we can get this stuff. If the session is not there, you need to redirect the user to the login page, auth/login page. You must log in. Okay, if the user is not there, if the user is not in the session, then you must log in, otherwise you can't access this home page. And now you can get session.user.email. Let's check this out. If I just log in here, so you need to pass the correct password. It should be async function. I totally forgot about it because this is server side. It takes some time to do the work. And if we just refresh it, as you can see, we are logged in as my username, logged in as adib@gmail.com. So it works really fine. If I just log in with another user, if I just logged in with just test, and with another user, if I just log in and with a proper credentials, and you see you were just logged in as test@gmail.com. So it works really fine without any issues, even if I protected this route as well with it. Okay, if you are not authenticated, you can't access this page. This is completely restricted for you if you don't logged in. Now I need to make our logout feature. This is really important. Otherwise I can show you different kind of feature how you work with it. And logout is very simple stuff. So in the UI you can make a logout button as well, and you can logout button.jsx, and this should be a logout button, and it should be use client, and this should be a button that should have a label, and we're gonna pass this label from our prop. As a prop, we're gonna pass it from our home page. So home page is actually this page, or this is home page. Here we're gonna use this logout button so that we can implement the logout feature. And as you can see, as it is a server-side component, we need to make a separate client-side component called logout button that we can inject inside the server component. This is really important. And we're gonna pass whatever the level, which is the logout, and we need to make sure we have an on-click listener here, and this will make sure we just log out. And we can import this sign out. As you can see, we just need to import it from the Next-Auth React, and when you click on this button, it should sign you out. Okay, and this have a class name of bg red 600 mx2 px1 my2 and rounded empty and text white. So if we want to just import this logout button inside this page, server-side page, and here we just need to import this logout button, and it takes a prop called label and logout. So let's check it out. Yes, it's beautiful, it is really nice, and when you click on this, it should log you out. Problem was it should come from the next navigation. It should come from redirect next navigation. This is so important. So auth/login. So if you are not authenticated, it should redirect you to the login page instead of the home page. So now it's really nice. Now if you are just logged in out, and if I just log in again with the proper credentials, as you can see, we're in the home page. It's working really nice. If I just log in out, yep, it's working really nice. And make sure we need to clear everything from our session. As you can see, if I just refresh it and if I just log in, let's see what happens. Yeah, we have a session token. Now we have a session, but before that we don't have a session. As you can see, we don't have a session. Now it worked really fine. His role is session.user.role, and his name is Riyadh and his role is user. Beautiful. And this is really awesome stuff. You can get all the information, and you already understand how we just log it out. But this home route, this is a protected page. This localhost 3000 is a protected page. Okay, so you need to protect it, very important. And then we have a public directory, which is actually the login and register. Everyone, if you are just currently logged in, you shouldn't go inside this login page. You need to protect this as well. So if I go into the login page, and this login page is actually the client page. Now we need to work with the client session manage. Okay, so for that you can use const session is equals to use session. Okay, use session, and that should come from our Next.Auth React as well. And here if we just console.log this login page session, if you want to see what we got, and if I go to the login page, and if I go to the login page, you'll see this thing. If I just log in and just log in again, see, as you can see, we have in the login page we have the data, and in the data we have the user, email, permissions, role, username, everything is there. As you can see, it worked really fine in the session. Now you can work with it very easily. So you have all the information. So as this is a client-side page, you have to use the client-side session manager. You cannot use server-side here. This is a very important thing. You have to know about this thing, and you need to protect this page as well. So here we need to protect this as well, because this login page is actually a public page. Anyone can access this, but if you are logged in, you cannot access this thing. So here we need to protect this using if the session is available, then redirect. Need redirect to the home page. Okay, redirect to the home page. So we protected this as well. So now we have this information into our session. Now we can access this login page. As you can see, if I go to auth login page, I can't go there. Now it handle all of this thing using the middleware. If we just go inside this root directory, in the app directory, we need to have a middleware, middlewares.js or middleware.js. Here we can go inside the Next.js middleware. If we go inside the Next.js middleware feature, If I go to the Next-Auth middleware, you can see there are a lot of features how can handle and route protect using the middleware as well. As you can see, next.auth.redirect, next response redirect, and new URL home. If the user is authenticated, you just redirect it to home. Okay, and there is a lot of config with the match with the a particular match of this particular user or URL. You can have a different kind of matcher with it, and so you can copy this stuff, export const config. Okay, so this is the same thing that we got, and this should be an about page. This should be the home page that we want to protect. Then we have the blogs page / add blog page that we want to protect, and different kind of stuff. And then we have this thing. Okay, you can just copy this thing and paste inside here, and this should be for whatever you have the dynamic path, and then you can add this stuff. And this should be blogs / update blog / whatever the path. So the normal user who is not authenticated can't reach inside this URL, like blogs update blog, like blogs add blog. He can't do this stuff. And you can use export default that is coming from Next-Auth / middleware. Okay, now it's time for the next part of the application where I'm going to show you the authorization, how you can protect the route from our admin, from our user. So now one more important thing is that if I logged in as admin, then I can only see the add block feature or functionality in the nav bar. So this is really important. So how can we manage all those things stuff? Let me show you everything. And in the nav bar, if I just show you our applications, if I go to the home, if I create blog, you shouldn't see this. If you are just normal user, you can't add a blog. Okay, only admin, suppose only admin can see this link. Okay, so how can we do this? Like, as you can see, blog / add blog, only admin can see this. So how can you manage this thing inside here? So as you can see, this number is actually use client component. So how can we manage this thing? So now it is really important to use the same technique, which is use const session is equals to use session. And as it is a client side component, you need to use client side session manage. And if you need to check if the user is admin, and then we can, if I just cut this out, and here we need to conditionally check this. If session dot user dot role is equals to admin, okay, then you can just see this link. Then you can see this link, otherwise you can't. As you can see, I can't see the link. If I just log in as test@gmail.com, so as you can see, I can't see this because I'm a normal test user. But if I just log out and log in as admin, and this is the admin user, if I just check it, as you can see, this is the admin user. Now as you can see, now you should see this thing. So if the session.user.role is equal to admin, if I just console.log this session in the nav bar, session in nav. So let's check it out. Console.log session in nav. As you can see, we have the data. Session.user.role admin. Okay, so this data should come from session.data.user. Now, as you can see, we see all the information. So that was the problem. Session.user is already there. Now we should get this. So I copy this thing. Session.data session.data.user.role admin, then you can see this stuff. And as you can see, I'm just currently as admin. Now we can see this stuff. So that's really awesome. So using the same thing, you can manage all of this stuff in the nav bar using the server side or the client side way. So this is the client-side way how you can manage this, and the client-side the data is inside session data, and then you can get the user data. So that was the mistake that I made. This is a very simple mistake, but in case you have some problem, you can log this out and check this problem, okay, and check if you got the user. But now if I just log it out, if I log in with another user and just log in with the proper credential, as you can see, I don't see this link like add like blog/add blog, but I can still get into the add blog page using this route, but we need to protect the route as well. So this is really important. So we need to just protect this as well. So how can we do this stuff? And before that, I can remove everything. So our navbar protection is done. Now we need to protect the actual route. So now we need to protect this route properly, and in the blogs we have the add blog. So here we need to protect this thing. We need to protect this add blog page, okay? And by default this is a server-side page, then we can work with this very easily. So const session, you can use await, and this should be, if you use s, it should be async, because this is a server-side component. You can work with it. And get server session, and you're gonna pass the auth options. This is the configuration that we need to work with the Next-Auth. And in here, if the session dot user dot role is not admin, if the role is not admin, who is actually in the author, who is actually the current authenticated user, if he is not admin, his role is not admin, then you need to redirect this guy, redirect or throw it or whatever you can do this stuff. And you need to make sure it is coming from the next navigation, and make sure this redirect is coming from the next navigation, otherwise it won't work. And then if the user is not admin, you should send him to the home page, or you can print some message or whatever you like, okay? So add block page should be protected. So now if I just refresh this, as I'm just normal user, I'm not admin, I can't go inside this blog/add block page. As you can see, I'm redirected to home page. But if I log in as my account, if I just log in now, and if I go into the blog/add blog, I can see this. Now this navigation is protected using the use session with the client-side way, and also the this page is also protected using the server-side session. And so now I can easily go inside blog/add blog page as well as the create blog. We can work with it because I'm now admin. I have the full control of it. If I'm not admin, if it is not admin, then you can direct to the home page. This add block is especially designed for the admin. So it is very easy to protect your guard, all of those things using the server session or normal session. And also the navbar, I have protected everything, and I also show you how to protect your home page as well. So the next part would be really important for you guys. So I hope you see all the video in the near future and just work with it.